What's going on, guys? My name is Christopher and welcome to It's Complicated. It's a show where I talk about and to showcase mostly mechanical wristwatches. So if you like mechanical wristwatches like I do, you're gonna want to hit that subscribe button and click on the little bell next to that subscribe button and you're all set. Today, we're gonna be discussing the Rolex Grey Market in late spring and early summer of 2020. Let's check it out. Every single year around the same time, I make a video discussing the Rolex Grey Market, what different models are selling for, etc. We're going to be using eBay to check the Grey Market prices. The reason I use eBay instead of some of these other sites where I can only see what they're asking for, on eBay I can actually see what watches have sold for. This year, the Rolex Grey Market is going to be specifically interesting one way or another because of the global pandemic. Earlier this year, I made a video talking about how the Rolex market might have experienced a little bit of a correction, but it looks like that correction was definitely temporary, if not just minor. Let's have a look at this Rolex GMT Master 2 126710 BLRO, also known as the Rolex Pepsi. This one wasn't even offered shipped, it was offered local pickup only, and it still sold for right around $17,000. Retail for that GMT Master 2 is just above $9,000, so this watch sold for almost twice of its MSRP. And this is right around what this watch was selling for last year. Maybe a little tiny bit lower, but pretty much right around the same ballpark. Now check out this Rolex 116610 LV, also known as the Rolex Hulk. Now these watches are going to be discontinued, and now that that information is out, this one sold for well over $15,000. I would imagine that these Rolex Hulks are going to keep climbing up in price slowly but surely, at least for a little while now that they are going to be discontinued. I want you guys to keep in mind that all of these watches I'm talking about, all of these watches that I'm showing you are sold, they were all sold in June of 2020. Here's a Rolex 126710 BLNR, also known as the Rolex Batman. A lot of people try to make this one called the Rolex Batgirl because of the Jubilee bracelet, but that just isn't sticking. If you go on eBay or other sites and you search the Batgirl, you're not going to find much. You're going to have to search the Rolex Batman. Anyway, that watch sold for right around $14,500. That's a little over $5,000 above retail price. Now that is a big discount. Last year, the Batman on the Jubilee bracelet was brand new and they were selling for a little under $20,000. That's a little bit of a correction, but hey, they've been out well over a year now, still selling well above retail. Let's have a look at the Rolex Daytona. Just saying the words Rolex Daytona, anybody interested in the wristwatch market, they know that that watch is big money. We're going to be looking at the 116500 LN. Also known as the Rolex Daytona Panda with that white dial and the black bezel. Now the Rolex Daytona has been a hard watch to obtain for decades now. Here's one that sold for over $23,000 and here's another one that sold for almost $22,000. Now keep in mind retail on the Rolex Daytona is a little over $12,000. Let's have a look at that Rolex Sea-Dweller with the red letters and the Cyclops lens. The model number is 126600. Now I was easily able to find two of these that recently sold for right around $13,000. That's right around $3,000 over MSRP. Now, some of these prices have come down a little bit since last year. The Pepsi and the Rolex Daytona are right around what they were last year. As I mentioned, the Batman on Jubilee, that is not quite as new, so that's come down a little bit. And the Hulk is worth significantly more than it was last year now that it's been announced that it is being discontinued. I'm sure that there were a lot of people in March when the pandemic first hit the United States that were thinking by June, there's no way any of these Rolex models would be selling above retail. Some of them are still selling for double retail price. Pretty wild. Now let's check the price on a couple of older Rolex models still floating around there on the gray market. Here's a classic 16233 Datejust two-tone bracelet, no box, no papers, still getting over $4,000. Here's another one from 1991, almost 30 years old, no box, no papers, still is grabbing $3.5 grand. You know something? Brand new in 1996, the Rolex 16233, that Datejust, its MSRP was $5,300. Now, 24 years later, no box, no papers, these watches are grabbing over $4,000. And a lot of people would argue that that watch is very out of style. So even an out of style Rolex watch that's been worn for 24 years is still getting a little under MSRP. Now, of course, there's inflation, so maybe the two-tone Datejust isn't the best example, but let's get to a better one. Here is a Rolex Explorer 1 14270 from the year 2000 that just sold for $5,000. MSRP on the Rolex Explorer 1 in 2004 was $3,500. So for argument's sake, let's say that Rolex Explorer 1 is a one-owner watch. The guy buys it in the year 2000, probably pays a little under $3,500 for it. Maybe the watch needed a service since he owned it. 20 years later, he turns around and he flips it for $1,500 more. Even if you account inflation, the guy still at least broke even and got to wear that watch for 20 years. And personally, I think that's a lot of the fun in owning a Rolex. I've had a Rolex Datejust 16233. I got to wear it around for 4 years as my daily driver watch, and then I got to turn around and sell it to somebody and make a profit. That's just not something possible with, let's say, a car. You cannot buy a car, make it your daily driver for 4 years, not put one single dollar into it, and then turn around and sell it for a profit. Not possible. But again, I think that's a big part of the fun in owning a Rolex. And don't forget, I owned 2 Omega watches. They were fantastic timepieces, especially the Moonwatch. The Moonwatch was legendary. And I barely lost any money selling them, but I did not make a profit flipping those watches. So there you have it. That is your 2020 Rolex Grey Market update. That's going to wrap it up for another episode of It's Complicated. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Please share this video with your friends, and I'll see you next time on another episode of It's Complicated.